Hi, it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead. Glad to be back with you as always. I'm going to continue reading in our book, By the Shore of Silver Lake by Laura Ingalls Wilder. We're on chapter 14 already, The Surveyor's House. And you can see right there, kind of the picture. There was no need to pack anything, for the surveyor's house stood on the north shore of the lake, not half a mile from the shanty. Laura could hardly wait to see it. When she had helped to put everything neatly in the wagon, and Mary, Carrie, and Ma and Grace were in it, Laura said to Pa, "Please, can't I run ahead?" "May, Laura," Ma said. "Really, Charles, don't you think—" "Nothing's going to hurt her," Pa said. "We'll have her in sight all the way. Follow the lake shore, Flutterbudget, and don't worry, Carolyn. We'll be there in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail." So Laura ran ahead. Against the steady wind she ran. Her shawl flapped in the wind behind her. Now this would be the shawl. Let me see if I can see. Right there. That's what she's wearing, is a shawl. And it was flapping in the wind. And the cold of the wind poured through her. She felt her blood thin and chill in the wind, and then she felt it warm and pulsing strong. And her breath throbbed hard in her chest. She passed the spoiled spots where the camp had been. The earth was hard under her pounding feet and rough with dead grass. No one else was anywhere near. Everybody was gone now. The prairie, the whole vast prairie, and the great sky and the wind were clear and free. Even the wagon was left behind now, but it was coming. Laura looked back and Pa waved to her. When she stopped running, she could hear the sound of the wind in the grasses and the lippity-lapping of the lake water. She hoppity-skipped on the short, dry grass along the shore. She could shout if she wanted to. No one else was here. She shouted, "It's ours! It's ours!" The shout seemed loud in her throat, but in the air it was thin. The wind took it away, perhaps, or the stillness of the empty land and sky could not be disturbed. The surveyor's boots had worn a path through the grasses. It was smooth and soft to Laura's feet. She bent her shawled head to the wind and padded along the path, hurrying. It would be fun to see the surveyor's house all by herself. It stood up in front of her suddenly. It was a big house, a real house, with 2 stories and glass windows. Its up and down boards were weathering from yellow to gray, and every crack was battened. That means they stuck stuff in between so no wind could get through, as Pa had said. The door was a china knob, so that's almost like glass. It opened into the lean-to over the back door. Laura opened the door and peeped in. Then she pushed the door back along the curved mark it had worn in the board floor, and she went in. The house had board floors, not as comfortable to bare feet as the earth floor of the shanty, but not so much work to keep clean. The largeness of the empty house seemed to wait and listen. It seemed to know that Laura was there, but it had not made up its mind about her. It would wait and see. Against its walls, the wind made a lovely sound, but that was outside the house. She tiptoed across the lean-to and opened the door on its farthest side. Laura looked at the large front room. Its board walls were still yellow inside. The sunshine from the west windows slanted yellow on the floor. A cool light came in from the front window to the east beside the front door. The surveyors had left their stove. It was a larger stove than the one that Ma had brought from Plum Creek. It had 6 lids on the top and 2 oven doors, and it stood all set up with its stovepipe in place. Spaced on the wall beyond the 3 doors, all of them were shut. Laura tiptoed across the wide floor and softly opened one door. There was a small room. Got to turn on the heater just a second. Cold in here. That room had a window too. Softly, Laura opened the middle door. She was surprised. Steeply up in front of her went a stair, just the width of the door. She looked up and saw the underside of the slanting high roof overhead. She went up a few steps, and the big attic opened on both sides of the stairs. It was twice as big as the large room downstairs. A window in each gable end lighted the whole empty space under the roof. That made 3 rooms already, and still there was another door. Laura thought there must have been a great many surveyors to need this much space. This would be by far the largest house that she had ever lived in. She opened the 3rd door. A squeal of excitement came out of her mouth and startled the listening house. There before her eyes was a little store. All up the walls of that small room were shelves, and on the shelves were dishes, pots and pans and boxes and cans. All around under the shelves stood barrels and boxes. The first barrel was nearly full of flour. The second held cornmeal. The third had a tight lid, and it was full of pieces of fat, white pork held down in the brown brine. Laura had never seen so much salt pork at one time. Then there was a wooden box full of square soda crackers, and a big box full of slabs of salted fish. There was a large box of dried apples, and 2 sacks full of potatoes, and another big sack nearly full of beans. The wagon was at the door. Laura ran out shouting, "Oh, Ma, come quick and see. There were so many things in a big attic, Mary, and a stove and crackers, soda crackers." Ma looked at everything and she was pleased. "It's very nice, I'm sure," she said, "and so clean. We can get settled in here in a jiffy. Bring me the broom, Carrie." Pa didn't even have to set up a stove. He put Ma's stove in the lean-to outside the back door where the coal was. Then, while Pa built a fire, they arranged the table and chairs in the large front room. Ma set Mary's rocking chair by the open oven door. Already that good stove was giving off heat. And in the warm corner, Mary sat holding Grace and amusing her, to keep her out of the way while Ma and Laura and Carrie were busy. Ma made the big bed on the bedstead in the bedroom. She hung her clothes and paws on nails in the wall there, and covered them neatly with a sheet. Upstairs, in the large low attic, Laura and Carrie made 2 neat beds on the bedsteads there, one for Carrie and the other for Laura and Mary. Then they carried their clothes in their boxes upstairs and hung the clothes on the gabled wall by one window, and under it they set boxes. Their boxes. Everything was neat now, so they went downstairs to help Ma get supper. Pa came in bringing a large, shallow packing box. "What's that for, Charles?" Ma asked, and Pa said, "This is Grace's trundle bed." "It's the only thing we needed," Ma exclaimed. "The sides are high enough to hold her covers tucked in, said Pa, and low enough to go under our bed in the daytime, like any trundle bed, said Ma. Laura, a trundle bed, as you just heard, is a little bed that can slide under a big bed. So you pull it out at night so somebody could sleep in there, and then you push it back under the bed in the day so you have more room. Laura and Carrie made up the little bed for Grace in the packing box and slid it under the big bed and pulled it out again for the night. The moving in was all done. Supper was a feast. The Surveyor's pretty dishes made the table gay. Little sour cucumber pickles from a jar the Surveyors had left made the warmed over roast duck and fried potatoes taste different. And after they'd eaten, Ma stepped into the pantry and brought out, guess what, she said. She set before each of them a little dish of canned peaches and 2 soda crackers. We'll have a treat, she said, to celebrate living in a house again. It was fine to be eating in such a large place with a board floor and glass windows glittering black against the night sky. Slowly, slowly they ate the smooth, cool peaches and the sweet golden juice and carefully licked their spoons. When the dishes were quickly cleared away and washed in the handy pantry, the table's leaves were dropped and the red and white checkered cloth spread and the bright shining lamp set on its center. Ma settled with Grace in the rocking chair and Pa said, "This makes a fellow feel like music. Bring me the fiddle box, Laura." He tightened and tuned the strings and roseted the bow. Winter evenings were coming again when Pa played the fiddle. He looked across contentedly at them all and at the good walls that would keep them nice and comfortable. "I must manage something for curtains," Ma said. Pa poised with the bow above the fiddle. "Don't you realize, Carolyn, that our nearest neighbor to the east is 60 miles away and our nearest neighbor to the west is 40? When winter shuts down, they might as well be further off. We've got the world to ourselves. I only saw 1 flock of wild geese today, flying high and fast. They weren't stopping at any of the lakes, not they. They were hurrying south. Looked to me like the last flock of the season. So even the geese have left us." His fiddle bow touched the strings and he began to play. Softly Laura began to sing. "One night when the winds grew bitter, blew bitter across the wild moor, young Mary she came with her child, wandering home to her own father's door. Cried, 'Father, oh pray let me in, take pity on me I implore, or the child in my arms will die from the winds that blow across the wild moor.' But the father was deaf to her cries. Not a voice, not a sound reached the door. But the watchdog did growl, and the village bells tolled, and the winds blew across the—" Pa stopped. "That song doesn't seem fit," he exclaimed. "What was I thinking of? Now, here's something worth singing." Merrily the fiddle sang, and Pa sang with it. Laura and Mary and Carrie sang too, with all their might. "I've traveled a bit in my time, and of troubles I've seen a few, but I found it better in every clime to paddle my own canoe. My wants are few, I care not at all if my debts are paid when due. I'll drive away strife at the ocean of life when I paddle my own canoe. Then love your neighbor as yourself as the world you go traveling through, and never sit down or tear tear or a frown, but paddle your own canoe. That's what we'll be doing this winter, said Pa. And we've done it a good many times before, haven't we, Carolyn? Yes, Charles, Ma agreed. And we haven't always been so comfortable and so well provided for. Everything's snug as a bug in a rug, said Pa, tuning the fiddle. I piled bags of oats across one end of the stable to make a small place for the cows and the team. They'll have all they can eat, too, and they'll be warm and cozy. Yes, we've got everything to be thankful for. Then he played the fiddle again. He played on, jigs, and reels, and hornpipes, and marches. Ma laid Grace in her little trundle bed and shut the door. Then she sat idly rocking. Idly means not doing any type of work. Listening to the music. Ma and Mary, Laura and Carrie listened until they were full of music. No one spoke of bedtime because this was their first evening in the new house, all by themselves on the prairie. At last Pa laid the fiddle and the bow in the fiddle box. He shut down the lid. A long, mournful, lonely howl came from the night outside the window. Very near it was. Laura sprang to her feet. Ma rushed to comfort Grace's screaming in the bedroom. Carrie sat frozen, white with big round eyes. It's only a wolf, Carrie, Laura said. There, said Pa. A fellow'd think you'd never heard a wolf before. Yes, Carolyn, the stable door is fastened. And that's the end of that chapter. So they're all nice and safe there. I hope you're nice and safe where you are. And I'm nice and safe here. Well, it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead. I want to pray blessings on you and on yours, in your house and out of your house, in the day and in the night. And whatever you do, keep dreaming. Good night, and God bless you.